Please subscribe and click the hype and like button to get more content like this. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. Everything demonstrated in this video is strictly for educational purposes, to show you how to protect yourself. All demonstrations are performed in a controlled lab environment on our own testing devices. We never target real users, and using this knowledge to gain unauthorized access to actual people or systems is strictly illegal and unethical.
In this video, we're going to look at some of the ways that we can perform passive reconnaissance using tools like WHOIS and Registration Data Access Protocol. We can use these tools to look up things like IP address and domain information. The first way we're going to do this is via a web browser. And when you open up your browser, if you navigate to the URL seen at the top of my screen, which is lookup.icann.org, then you'll be brought to this homepage. This homepage is where we can perform IP address and domain information lookups. Now in this case, this lookup is using RDAP, or Registration Data Access Protocol, which is a replacement for the WHOIS tool. However, they both work very similarly and they will give you similar results. So let's see how we can use this website to perform these lookups. In the middle of the screen, we have a search bar. Here we can enter either a domain name or an IP address and look it up. So let's try looking up this website itself. I'm going to put in icann.org into the search bar and then click Lookup. And now, on the page, we have information about the domain. It gives us the internationalized domain name, the registry domain ID, the domain status, the name servers that are associated with the domain, when the registry would expire, when it was last updated, and when it was created. Sometimes there is contact information. However, in some cases, it's redacted for privacy reasons. We have information about the registrant for the domain, the registrar information, which gives us some contact emails. We have DNSSEC information and the authoritative servers that are used by the registry. If we scroll back up to domain information, we can look under the name servers and find this IP address 199.4.138.53. Let's copy that IP address, and now in the lookup bar, instead of icann.org, let's put in that IP address and click Lookup. So now we're doing a lookup by IP address instead of domain name. Here we get data such as IP network information, which tells us the status, the address range, the IP version, the name, type, parent handle, and WHOIS server, as well as the registration and last change dates. We have contact information, once again, for the registrant, and the name is ICANN. So in this case, we've done a lookup using RDAP, which is very similar to WHOIS, on ICANN, using both the domain name and the IP address to get information. Now let's look at a way we can do this using a command line tool. There are a variety of WHOIS command line tools available depending on what platform you're working on. In this case, we're going to be working on a Windows system, but you can install this on Linux systems, and things like Kali Linux come with it pre-installed. To work with WHOIS on the command line on a Windows system, navigate to the URL learn.microsoft.com/en-us/sysinternals/downloads/WHOIS. Then, on the page, click on Download WHOIS. This will download a zip file, which you can then extract into a folder. Once you have that folder extracted, you can open up a PowerShell window or terminal of your choice inside of that folder, and then run an ls. Running ls shows us that we have an end-user license agreement, as well as 3 different executables. This whois.exe executable is what we're going to use to run our WHOIS lookups. Once we have this tool downloaded, we can start working with WHOIS on the command line. So, to run WHOIS, we can do /whois.exe and then provide it with either a domain name or an IP address once again. So let's provide it with icann.org again. And scrolling up, we can see that we got very similar information to when we used the web browser. However, doing it on the command line gives us a little bit more flexibility to start doing this programmatically. So we can see that in the output of the whois.exe, it tells us connecting to org.whoisservers.net, and then we get a variety of information about the domain that we've looked up. So we can see the WHOIS server, the registrar URL, the updated date creation date, the registry expiry, the registrar, the domain status, various IDs and names if they aren't redacted, We can see the registrant organization is ICANN, or Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. There is more information about the registrant, as well as the admin. We have the name servers again, and DNSSEC information. So now we've looked up a domain via the domain name using the WHOIS command line. Let's do the same thing, but with an IP address. So once again, I'm going to type in ./whois.exe, and then I'm going to give it an IP address, and in this case, I'm going to give it the same IP address of the name server for ICANN.org that we used previously, which is 199.4.138.53. And if I scroll up, we get very similar information in the output. So this is how we can use the command line to once again use the WHOIS tool to look up IP information using a domain name or domain information using an IP address. And if we want to clean up the command a little bit, we can pass the flag -no banner to this command before the IP address and hit enter. And it gives us a slightly cleaner output at the start. This can be useful if you're trying to incorporate this into a scripting environment. This can be a very useful tool for getting preliminary information when doing your reconnaissance for a penetration test.